One's ready. Go! So you guys are going into special warfare assessment selection. It is an attributes-based selection model. What does that mean?
Guys, are we running right now to get fitter? Are we practicing running? Practicing.
I can't freaking...
So there's a holistic picture that we're looking for. The instructors are giving you input, and we're expecting an output. And everything is for a reason. If you guys haven't heard my spiel yet, everything that we do, every single exercise, has a connection to the job that you're trying to do. We don't want people at INDOC, Special Warfare Assessment Selection, whatever they're gonna call the new course when it inevitably changes somewhere down the road. I don't care what they call it. What I need is you to show me the raw materials for the things that I wanna build you into. Just like everything else, it's a crawl, walk, run.
I'm running keys just like this. All the way to ATC, you never quit. All the way to ATC, you never quit.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You're in the team room. This is your daily drop for the 1st of October, brought to you by Tasty Gains. If you guys are in the market for some creatine gummies, pre-workout gummies, let's see, hydration powder and nootropics, Tasty Gains is the place for you. So you head over to tastygains.com. No promo code or anything like that. Get yourself some creatine gummies. They are third-party tested twice over now. And it turns out that they have more creatine in their gummies than what they even advertise, which is wild that they're just giving away free creatine. So we've been partnered with them for, I don't know, about a month, 2 months now. And they're going to be supporting our operator training summit in Nashville and probably subsequent training summits as well. Speaking of training summits, if you guys are interested, we still have slots available for Nashville. It's at the end of October. Got all the details. You can order it at onesready.com or you can email me at jared@onesready.com to get all signed up and all that kind of good stuff. All right, so daily drop, news, all that kind of stuff. Man, the most, and I covered the Secretary of War and the President of the United States stuff yesterday. So today, since we're kind of in the midst of it and I've been dealing with it, is we got the government shutdown. So the government shutdown did in fact happen. No appropriations bill was passed. What does that mean though, right? What does it all mean, Basil? When a government shuts down, at least what we're talking about right now, it means different things every single time because it depends on what is funded, what is considered mission essential, all that kind of good stuff, right? So in this case, what I can tell you is government civilians have many of them, most of them have been furloughed. So they still have jobs, but they're not allowed to work in them and they're not getting paid for that time. So whenever the continuing resolutions on appropriations bill get signed, they'll be able to fall right back in on their job. Some of them are still able to work because they've been deemed exempt or mission critical. But for the majority of the cases, they have been furloughed. Now, let me give you an example of how this impacts us, right? And I don't know if you can hear it, but there's still jets flying over. So you ask, I thought we were shut down. What does that mean? How are jets able to take off? Well, going back to what I was talking about, there are civilians that work in scheduling. There are civilians that work in security. There are civilians that work in the air traffic control tower on the airfield. There are civilians that work at the range. So if I'm going to use Nellis as an example, they are at minimal manning up in the tower doing air traffic control. The folks that are up there right now are probably green suiters, are probably uniformed active duty personnel. So they're able to take off and land at the airfield, and some of those operations are able to continue. But if they're going to go fly on the range, which Nellis has an enormous range, they are limited on what they're actually able to do while they're flying out there. They can't employ air-to-ground munitions, so they can't go dropping bombs. They can't go shooting a gun like that. They're limited on what they can train to when it comes to air. So they're limited on what threats are being able to turn on or turned off. So the effective training isn't happening. What you also have to consider is there's not really air traffic control over the range. So when we start talking about how do you keep planes from running into each other and stuff like that, a lot of them are being assigned air blocks in airspaces from Nellis. And they transit the airspace, and once they get into the airspace, they're allowed to go into their certain range area or airspace block. But without there being active range control, they can't deviate from any of those plans. And right now, it's going to be overly restrictive. Now, I'm just giving you one tiny example, right? But it impacts schools, it impacts child development centers or daycares, if you're not familiar with the CDCs. So it impacts a lot of stuff. Is it still doable and you can conduct operations? Maybe, but at a very limited capacity for a limited amount of time, and you accept a lot more risk, especially operationally, because, things that I mentioned about, airspace deconfliction and that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So that's the top news, really. Let's talk about other stuff while I yawn right in your ear. All right, so this is for the Army, and I broke it down into each service, but we'll see how that works out, because most of these are already glanced at, and most of them are based off of the appropriations bill not getting signed. Secretary of Defense speech outlines War Department reforms directives to senior leaders. Secretary of Defense addressed generals, admirals at Quantico, outlining a set of personnel and cultural directives aimed at reorienting the force towards readiness and discipline. Department channels published transcripts and memo materials summarizing the initiatives for implementation across the services. Army posts issue base status guidance during lapse of appropriations. Army installations publish local guidance on services during the funding lapse, identifying accepted activities and anticipated impacts to civilian workforce and base services. Communications stress continuity of essential missions while acknowledging constraints under shutdown rules. Navy, same thing. U.S. Pacific Fleet issued guidance followed the lapse of the appropriations, yada, yada, yada. Same thing. Marine Corps Recruiting Command change of command. The Marine Corps Recruiting Command marked a leadership transition as the outgoing commander closed a tenure spanning challenging recruitment cycles. The ceremony highlighted mission continuity and performance despite national recruiting headwinds. Man, I'd have to go take a look. I know the Air Force met its recruiting goals. I thought the Marines had met their recruiting goals. I'm probably wrong. I could have swore that they freaking had their recruiting goals met. Anyway, doesn't matter if I don't actually have the information to give you, does it? All right. This is Air Force news. Air Force shifts 7 developmental duties into Talent Marketplace. If you guys aren't familiar with Talent Marketplace, it's exactly what that is. They view personnel within the Air Force, our airmen, as talent, and then they have a marketplace where it advertises certain jobs so that you can volunteer for it, and then you can volunteer for several jobs, and then you can rock and stack them in priority. Anyway, U.S. Air Force announced that key developmental roles like recruiting, first sergeant, instructor will become volunteer opportunities managed through Talent Marketplace. The change intends to increase transparency and broaden access to leadership development pathways. Okay, so no kidding, this is a good news. Oh crap, what was that called? Man, retirement brains get me. DSD, that's what it's called. And you know what? And I don't remember what DSD stood for, but DSD would come out twice a year, if I remember right. And it was for things like recruiter, drill instructor, first sergeant, stuff like that. And you'd volunteer for it. and you asked what you wanted, and it was never guaranteed that you got it, even though the DSD system was kind of designed to ensure that most people get it. But anyway, so this is a good thing that they're moving it to telemarketplace. I think it'll streamline it and be a better process. All right, moving on to Space Force. Space Systems Command details process for identifying and closing warfighter gaps. The Space Force Public Affairs outline how operational needs are captured and translated into capability solutions, emphasizing faster pathways from requirement to fielded effect. The narrative underscores collaboration with users and acquisition elements. Next, Schriever Wall of Honor recognizes new class of space leaders. Space Systems Command commemorated a new cohort on the Schriever Wall of Honor, highlighting historical contributions and leadership milestones in national security space. The recognition supports service heritage and professional identity. Oh, this is not related to just the Navy or space or Army or anybody like that, but it's pretty funny seeing with the shutdown, seeing all of the social media pages and stuff like that saying, hey, due to the government shutdown, this page will not be updated regularly or at all. That kind of stuff. I mean, it's pretty wild how many pages are managed by civilians. Now, I can tell you that the weapons schools page is not managed by a civilian. It's active duty, although it's not posting very much. And you know who else doesn't take a break? The mill meme pages. They don't take breaks. We don't take a break. We'll keep giving it to you. Yeah. All right. Next, oops, lost my place. All right, the Coast Guard, they issued their shutdown policies. Don't need to read that to you. A cutter offloads narcotics haul in South Florida. The crew of a medium endurance cutter offloaded multi-ton cocaine and marijuana interdicted in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, reflecting ongoing counter-drug operations with interagency partners. The case underscores persistent maritime interdiction tempo. Whew, multi-ton, dude. That's a lot of ganja, a lot of cocaine, and a lot of money's worth. Jeez. All right, next, Secretary of Defense. Secretary of Defense convenes senior leaders. Reforms draw scrutiny. Of course, it's going to. Following the Quantico gathering of the general and flag officers, Secretary of Defense announced reforms, including changes to compliant oversight systems and cultural standards. It drew significant attention. Reporting highlights planned on curbs on anonymous complaints and broader leadership discretion, with critics warning of whistleblower impacts. DoD posted related transcripts and materials. I did see somebody on social media on Instagram talking about how, out of everything that was said, they agreed with it all, except for the fact that military equal opportunity, the inspector general, and EO, equal opportunity. No, there were three things I thought the Secretary of War mentioned yesterday that they were going to be putting more constraints on. And this lady was kind of like, hey, I agree with everything but this, like, who are you going to have victims go to and stuff like that. Nobody said anything about getting rid of SAPR. Nobody said anything about getting rid of the military family liaison counselor or anything like that. Like, all of those things are still in place. Why you gathered that from the IG being constrained, EO being constrained, and stuff like that. Like, I don't understand why you're diving in on that and so upset about that, but whatever. And I know I'm talking into the void here and you guys are like, who the fuck are you talking about? But anyway, I saw it and it was just like, that just made no sense to me. All right. Next, President of the United States, White House frames shutdown and signals potential workforce impacts. Amid the funding lapse, the White House has issued statements attributing the shutdown to congressional opponents and warning of possible workforce reductions if it persists. That is already happening. External outlets reported on administration messaging and options under consideration. Coverage also noted POTUS remarks to military leaders at Quantico, emphasizing discipline and a warrior focus. All right, that's it for your your daily drop ops brief today. Hopefully we get a little bit more tomorrow. Maybe some good news that some votes happened and an appropriations bill got passed, but we shall see. Until then, appreciate you guys being here. See you.